what topic are we discussing today?
Getting a dog.
A dog or a puppy or
a mixture of both, because I think
a shelter dog or...
Well, I think getting a dog encompasses a number of different avenues, whether that's a puppy, whether that's a adopted dog, whether that's a dog that's been passed on from a loving family. There's a lot of connotations, and what we want to talk about today is working through those steps as to how to decide which way to go for you and your family.
Excellent. So let's begin. What are we going to talk about first? What is the first step before we get a dog?
Do your homework.
Absolutely. Think about it.
It's a very difficult decision. People think, a lot of people get dogs on impulse, right? But there's nothing impulsive about that decision. That decision needs planning. Because, the south side of this is, we're happy about a puppy or a dog in the first few days, and then we start to understand what it's going to take, and people start to get frustrated. And this is why many dogs end up without a home. So there's a lot of planning that has to happen in prior, and people underestimate why they need to speak to professionals before they do that decision. And the decision should involve first choosing the right dog for you, depending on your experience, your lifestyle, and your ability to deal with certain breeds. And when I say certain breeds or dogs, meaning that you're actually going and getting your dog from a breeder. There's another flip coin to this is you're going to rescue dogs, and this is where things become much more complicated. And or second-hand. I don't like to say the term second-hand, but people, end up picking dogs from their friends, the other family members, or, dogs from shelter again. And
I think one practice that we have in Dubai is that either they adopt from shelter or, it's one person giving up, looking for another home. So these practices are really at the peak. And then the third is buying one.
But there's different levels of buying as well, because there's the impulsive pet shop buy that people go to, and they see that poor puppy that's in its own mess in a pet shop, and they rush in and rescue that puppy. Or there are the people that will bring in a dog from abroad or use a company to bring a dog in for them. So there's a multitude of ways that you can get a new dog. And it's trying to work through what the issues are with each and every type of dog that you get. There's also a massive difference between taking on a puppy from a pet shop that has got unknown parentage to you. You haven't seen the mother, the father of those dogs, the grandparents of those dogs. You haven't seen how it was raised before it got to that pet shop. So you don't know what its early socialization was like. You don't know what the genetic inherited characteristics of behavior are going to be like in that dog. In the same way as if you take on a dog from a friend, hopefully you've seen enough of that dog through the time that if that's what you do, then you know what you're getting into. Again, if you rescue a dog, that's something that you need to actually have a look at the behaviors of that dog and realize what issues that dog has before it comes to you. Any dog that is not come perfectly out of the womb is going to have issues, whoever it's come from.
Yes, and even if you get dogs from, let's say, the best of the best breeders who do have these beautiful programs and they know exactly what they're doing and they have, solid experience, people can end up, damaging the dog more than, allowing the dog to do what it's meant to be, and why these breeders went through this program to sort of give us a platform where we can take it forward and make that dog successful within that household.
I mean, even if you look at a massive organisation like Guide Dogs for the Blind, the number of dogs that fail on that program, puppies that fail in the first year on that program as not making the grade to be a guide dog, to not be perfect for that purpose, shows that there is no way this is an exact science. You've got to do the best you can. But the more homework you have, the more planning you have, the less mistakes you're going to make.
So what would be the main aspects of a homework? Like when you say homework, what is it that, a newly parent or before becoming a parent should be doing?
Look, when you are a parent or someone who's expecting a baby, sure, you want to stay away from big, large dogs, working breeds. Unless you're set up to work with something like this and you have previous experience with that. But we get, called many times, and, there's popular breeds, if you like, yeah? So Belgian Malinois, German Shepherds. And you find people now, like, they're, very keen on getting these dogs. And when I start to speak to them and understand their lifestyle, and you start to explain to them why they shouldn't, and they would just not, let it sink in. They underestimate how much this dog needs. And in the same time, in my head, what's going on, you're going to get this wrong, and, a child is going to get hurt. You're talking about high drive, high energy, herding dogs. And, they start herding in the house, they start herding, the children. You start, letting, small behaviors. The dogs are getting away with small behaviors. These behaviors escalate, and then all of a sudden we're at disaster. It's just, I think last week I was reading, there's a lady with 2 huskies that she's had for 7-8 years, and they were totally fine with her baby. And then they went to she put her baby down in the crib, and the husky basically,
but
had the baby, and they didn't have him in a natural way. Also, it was a disaster. I wouldn't be more graphic than that, but this is underestimating what you have.
But that's down to very much the research as to the breed of the dog that you're after. A working dog is designed just to do that. It's designed to work. They're a highly intelligent, highly driven breed, as you said, and that energy needs to be put to good use every day. Not just when you feel like it. That energy has to be put to very, very good use every day.
Agreed. I always tell my clients, you look at dogs as companion animals. But that is a term. It's a coin, It's a saying like, it's a companion animal. And, if we want to take what this word means, it's like my emotional buddy, my best friend, and all of that stuff, yes? But that's not what it really means. Historically, companion animals were, animals that had a symbiotic relationship with humans, and that relationship had a purpose. So we depended on each other to strive. So you had hunters and gatherers, for example, who used dogs so they can actually eat, and they used them for hunting. And then
protection of
protection, and then evolution happened, and we civilization started advancing, and we went into farming, right? And then we used dogs to shepherd and guard livestock, and there's sort of a shift in that relationship. And all of a sudden, you fast forward, and then there was also military use to dogs, right? And in Egypt, for example, there's I think 3,000-4,000 year old archaeological finds that coins Egypt as the first civilization who created dog collars and leads, right? So there's a lot of depictions into history, and if we take all of that history and we look at it and we look at what's happening today, we sort of take an animal that's meant to have a function, work, into thinking he's, another child or a baby in our house, and it's a companion animal, and this is how we treat them. And all of a sudden, these dogs are starting to get damaged, right? And the damage is why we don't allow them to use their senses to start with. So we start feeding them from the plate directly. And you're talking about a creature who depends on using its senses, and its best senses are his olfactory sensories, which is the sniffing, and auditory functions. If humans have 12,000 to 10,000, I think, olfactory sensories, dogs can have up to 360 million hounds, bloodhounds, and if you take
even imagining putting that in a house with people with lots of perfume and smells, that must drive them crazy. It must drive them demented, because you're overloading all of these senses all of the time. Then
it brings us to the question where, if I'm getting a dog, should I be questioning myself, why am I getting a dog?
100%.
Because you said companionship is completely different. Obviously we're not going to go back to the history, but if you look at it now, and then let's focus on Dubai, because that's where we are and that's where we're helping everybody for, by keeping their dogs. So how would you define getting a dog in Dubai? Like, is it a companionship? Definitely not hunting. I don't know protection, because Dubai is safe. So why am I getting a dog?
Even protection dogs here, like, what are you expecting the dog to do? We get this call. A lot of clients want, their dogs to be protection dogs. But, the function of it in Dubai doesn't really exist, apart from like proper police work, if you like, or military work, like proper service dogs.
We had a problem with a client who had come from a country with a lot of crime, and he came here and he decided he wanted and needed a protection dog, and he got himself a Rottweiler from a pet shop, and he was actively encouraging this dog to be aggressive. And you turn around and you're saying to this guy, you are living in a suburban environment, you're living on a street with villas, with children all around, actively training that dog to attack on-site people. It's a recipe for disaster, because if you speak to anyone, and you can answer this better than me, but you speak to anyone about training, one of the biggest points of training is to be able to switch that dog off.
Control.
Look,
if you look at it, some of the service dogs or dogs that are properly trained by the experts in that field, because it is a speciality, yes, they know what they're doing, and they have some of the best trained dogs in the world. And a lot of people think the training is about, making the dog aggressive. But it's not really. It's allowing the dog to tap into sort of a game for them, and they allow the dog to tap into this, sort of behavior. But in reality, how it works is we have a dog that we categorized as, humanity is a guard dog or a personal security dog. We gave that categorization to the dog because the dog can display this skill set. And so what happens in training is we take that human required behavior and we amplify it in a way through different training techniques, but in the same time we are able to switch it on and off. And that is, high level training. There's a lot of good trainers who know how to do that, and it's not my field, but in a nutshell, this is how it works.
But actually, most of those trainers, if they're selecting dogs for that purpose, will naturally discard the aggressive dogs from that program, because they're much harder to train.
They do have a qualification process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the people who go to a pet shop and take on a puppy that's charging at the bars trying to attack them, how is that going to work in a family environment?
And that's where, socialization,
exactly.
The term of socialization also is misunderstood. Now, a lot of people, and it's a majority, think that when they're going to get a dog, and because people started to get more aware and they're reading and there's a lot of information there, they say, okay, we need to socialize our dog. And the socialization has become sort of this term where, I need to take my dog to a dog park. He needs to meet at least 200 dogs, because this is what they read, no? And they need to meet as much as people they can. And and this is what they perceive socialization is. But the term socialization in our professional world means the ability to take the dog in public spaces, for example, without the dog displaying any unwanted behaviors such as aggression, anxiety that leads to aggression, and not displaying any form of aggression towards humans, other animals, other species, and other dogs. And the way the socialization happens is through training. So you can take your dog to a dog park, expose him to 100 dogs. He's going to have bad experiences because that environment is not controlled. And then you're going to have a puppy or a dog that's 4 months, 6 months, who've had an altercation with a bigger dog, and that's going to leave a mark. So you go from training your dog into behavior, starting to modify your dog, and how many people can actually reverse behavior here in Dubai? I don't know.
I think getting a dog is it true that getting a dog from shelter is a much bigger challenge? And now that, obviously a lot of people want to help, a lot of people want to foster, a lot of people want to, adopt as well. But then getting a dog from a shelter is not just as easy as I think people think, because there is a lot of trauma that is there.
It's much more difficult.
It is much harder. I say you may have undisclosed health issues in there, but also the experience is that dog has had through its life will have formed its personality. And by forming that personality, once a personality is more formed, it's much harder to adapt and change that.
And there's genetics into it also, depending on the country, or the region. Like here, many of the rescues are, desert mix breeds. Yeah. I like to call them the Dubai special mix, and these dogs are used to having sort of a flight response to things. So they don't, this is what they're doing.
Very, very nervous.
They're nervous and they like to have the space to flee, and that's their mechanism. And this is what's sort of like their genetics is. And all of a sudden, they're put into, the rescued, right? And we coined the term rescue. There's, for me, different types of levels of rescue, when it should happen, when it shouldn't happen. But I wouldn't go into that
we'll
much
definitely
today.
keep a separate topic on that.
Yeah, but, when you adopt a dog like this, bravo, that's a beautiful thing to do. But also, there's two responsibilities. The responsibility is on the shelter or the team that rescued the dog to make sure that anyone who is going to come and adopt this dog has actually had experience or
and training,
homework,
training the person,
or a pre-required, sort of understanding into what you're going to do before you get these dogs. It's not an easy breed, by the way. Like we can actually classify them as a breed today because there's so much of them, right? But it's not an easy. It's one of the most difficult breeds, and their repertoire, their body language, their behavior is different from other breeds.
I think that's also the other thing. If you adopt a dog that hasn't had a, say, normal childhood, normal puppyhood, is that a lot of these dogs also have a very confused body language in what they're doing and what they expect of their human, their people. So if you like, for people out there who think that they can go on the internet and learn how to train a dog, most of these programs that you see on the internet are made for the perfect dog. But if you have a dog that doesn't have those communication channels for you to use, that has had all of those disturbed, there's no way you can train that dog using Dr. Google. It's not going to work.
That's a very good point.
I like, that I like people who, before they get the dog, they come and speak with us or with other professionals about what should I be expecting. And and it's our job to educate them. Look, this is what might happen. This is what you're going to be looking at in terms of behaviors. And this is how you're going to be able to manage. If you cross certain lines, then come back and let's have another chat. People underestimate the importance of having a dog trainer work with you from the moment you get a dog. And it is so underestimated that, one is they try to hide away from that fee. And they think it is not required because they have had dogs all their lives. Two is, once they start seeing behavioral issues, it is ignored. And many of the behavioral issues
or encouraged
they are classified as if my dog pees in the house, there's this you get a newspaper and smack the dog on his nose or whatever, and that leads to other behaviors. It's sort of like old school techniques that have been passed through generations, and people think it's the right thing to do.
My dad had a friend back at sort of his university days. And the training at that time was if your dog peed on the carpet, you rub its nose in it.
Oh.
That's what used to happen years and years ago. And this dog trained itself to pee on the carpet and rub its own nose in it and then walk away. Yeah, it just shows how bad that training method is. But the dog would turn around, rub its nose and walk away. And that's what it felt you had to do. Yeah. So, the learning wasn't there. I shouldn't pee on the carpet. It was just, if I do it, this is what I've got to do.
They're going to do it anyway, so I'll do it myself.
There's another very good aspect, I think, let's touch on that, is the medical side of getting a dog, or the vet side of getting a dog.
Absolutely. And I mean, from that, again, it's not a perfect science, but you would expect if you go from good stock from good pedigree that you should have worked out a lot of the breed problems from that dog if you're going for a pure breed. If, on the other hand, you're going for a rescue or a dog that's been seen before, then these are the other aspects that you need to look at, because there are congenital issues. So breeds like Labradors will have hip dysplasia, German Shepherds, Rottweilers, all of those can have problems that affect them from a very young age, or elbow dysplasia.
And we see much more today.
Yeah.
Bad breeding.
But when you say this, does that mean that if I'm sort of like a sporty person, so I go for jogs every morning or every evening, does that mean that I shouldn't get a lab?
I think it means that you need to pick the right one, and you need to treat that dog properly for the first 18 months. Well, you should treat it properly its whole life, but you should be looking after and developing joints in a growing dog for the first 18 months of its life. So it alters when we would new to the dog. It would alter how much training you do with that dog in the first 18 months whilst it's trying to form and develop. It alters how you're going to exercise that dog, because you're trying to build up muscles rather than wear out joints. So all of these things are important as to the route you go down. But if you take on an older or a dog that has these problems, then those should be massive, massive red flags on you as to whether you go forward and take on that dog. Because it's fine to turn around and say, oh, he's got hip dysplasia, I'll just look after his hips. But what you then think is, if we're working onto that, is he's going to be sore every time I touch him around his back end. And as he gets more sore, he's likely to become more aggressive.
And also, you know, when you get a dog, there's also changes that need to happen within the house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we're talking about slippery surfaces, for example. You know, dogs need grip. You have a puppy or a dog who is potentially a patient with a hip dysplasia, or you know, an elderly dog that needs care, and they just, you know, sometimes dogs, they just pick up themselves and they, you know, they go and zoom, and they, you know, they slip, and there's, you know, ligament damage happening here. You know, there's many things to consider. This is, you know, more awareness today. I like this. I like what we're doing here today, because this awareness is sort of, this information is out there, but it's not put into one space where, hey, you know, get a dog. I encourage you to get a dog. It's one of the best things, rewarding things that you can have in your life. For me, with my children, dogs are, you know, and animals is like magic in their life. But also, there's homework to be done. Get your homework done. Prepare for the dog in your household. Prepare for what you're going to deal with. And when you have issues, speak to the experts. Sometimes you need to speak with the veterinarians and or the dog trainers. And today, in a perfect world, there's a merger sort of, you know, going on between proper dog trainers and vets with an open mind on how we work and collaborate together to give a successful sort of a synergic solution to clients.
With a good vet and dog trainer, what we should be looking at is the whole lifestyle of that dog from start to finish, and how can we all collaborate together with preventative care. Preventative care being in terms of health, in terms of training, in terms of behaviour, prevent the problems rather than trying to deal with them when they've happened. But if we can prevent those problems, then we have a happy family. I don't care whether there's one of you with your dog, you're still a happy family because you've got that nucleus of two. And it's working through that. But an unhappy dog, an unhappy person with that dog, means that dog is going to get damaged even more, lose its home, end up with problems that are probably not its fault, because it's down to the people who've looked after it.
And you know, there isn't, I get a lot of calls from really good people, right? And they really wanted a dog, and they really, you know, thought they can take care of the dog. And they also had dogs previously in their lives. And they tell me, like, I don't remember it was that hard. I don't know how my parents did it, you know. And
every person who gets a puppy turns around and says, I mean, it must be this complete mental blankness that you have. It's, I suppose in people, it's like the sort of the act of childbirth or something like that. Yeah, there's something built within our brains to block that out and turn it into a good memory. And you end up with a puppy and you think, oh my goodness, do they really have this much energy? And how do I do that? And
Yeah.
how did I cope with them destroying everything that they came across last time? And I didn't know how much time.
That's where the question comes in. Like now, if I really want to get a dog, I'm an active person. I get an active dog, but the dog is way too active. Or I'm a lazy person. I want to get a lazy dog, but then the dog is way too lazy.
But what's a lazy dog? You know, like
I don't want to say the breeds, but the calm and then collected ones.
But I think the other thing is that what you need to look at is I'm going to have this dog for 15 years. Okay, how is my lifestyle going to change over 15 years? What am I going to do in that time? If I'm young, single, 25, what am I going to be doing when I'm 35, 40? Is my ambition that I really would like a family of some nature? I therefore need to have a dog that will cope with children coming along, with babies coming along. Am I going to be hiking up in the wadis? Fantastic. Well, let me get a dog for the next 15 years that's going to cope with doing that with me. Yeah, these plans have to almost be put in place. And not just that, but you also need to think about putting that pot of money to one side, because you're thinking, my dog is going to need veterinary care. My dog is going to need training. And there's a chance I may travel, and I want to have a dog that can travel with me, and I want to put everything in place before, so that when I get that dog, if I lost my job, if something happened in 6 months' time, that dog is ready to get on the plane with me, next to me, and maybe not next to you on the seat, but my dog is ready to travel with me to our new adventure together. And putting those pots of money and contingencies in place before you get the dog are super, super important.
That's for me the companionship. You know,
It's
the companionship is for me is our ability to take care of our dogs. That is for me what the term companionship with dogs means.
One more thing before getting a dog. Now, a lot of people ask, when you have a husky, how do you have a husky in Dubai, or a German Shepherd? What do you do with the coat with the German Shepherd, because it's so hot? Now, getting a dog, does that really, is a concern? Does that matter if you have a husky NUAE, or you have
I think
a Maltese, because they shave them, and that's not right.
I think what should come up is, before you get that dog, is that dog appropriate to this climate? So by getting a dog of that nature, am I going to do the best for that dog? We've got a client, fantastic client, and they have huskies, and funnily enough, they spend the winter in Dubai, and then they take the dogs to the snow for the summer months, and they travel, and those dogs go hiking 12 months of the year.
Beautiful.
That obviously takes quite a big pot of money for them to do that. Right. But these people took on these dogs with the knowledge that these dogs would not cope in the hot weather here, because it's not just about it being hot. It's about the mental stalemate of those dogs and trying to find something for those dogs when they can't exercise to the amount that they need to for 5-6 months of the year. Those dogs go crazy. So, we talk about it being too hot for them, but there is the mental as well as the physical side of not being able to do what you want. And huskies, as a breed, they're designed to pull sleds in the snow. That's their job.
Thanks to Game of Thrones, I guess. We had a surge in hybrid wolf dogs and huskies in the past, let's say, 10 years. Even 15 years, and same applies to when there's these like big movies, blockbusters. You see, like the last movie I think was with Keanu Reeves. What was it called? The one, John Wick. Yeah. So in the first 3 they had the Staffordshire, American Bully, whatever you want to call them, and then now in the last one they had the Belgian Malinois. Yeah. And then you start to see a surge in people getting these breeds.
Even look at other breeds, like, if you like the social media hits on getting brachycephalic or snub-nosed breeds. But people need to realise when they're getting these dogs that these dogs are between 3 and 20 times more likely to suffer from heat stroke.
Even the Pomeranians, Maltese,
especially the short-faced ones, so your Frenchies, your Bulldogs, all of these things. So they're, because of the composition of their airways, they can't get rid of heat in the same way. And they've got imagine these dogs that you took your blueprint of a greyhound, and what you did with these dogs, you've got all the turbinates in the nose, everything's the length of the greyhound, and then you effectively take a truck and smash them into a wall, and they have a squished nose that is 10% of the length of the greyhound, but all of the inner workings of that nose are the same length. So all of the turbinates that cool you in your nose, instead of running in beautiful scrolls and straight lines, are a jumbled mess. So you don't get the cooling within your nose. Even the structures in the throat are developed to be much, much bigger, but in a small space. So you have less space down your airway for breathing. So, these things, and on top of that, these dogs can't fly in most places in the summer months. So if you're going to take on a breed like that, you need to make sure that you have the capacity, the environment to keep that dog cool, and that you're aware of heat stroke, you're aware of effects of being fat on risk of heat stroke, you're doing all of these things. And often they'll need surgeries, which seems a bit crazy to buy a puppy and expect its first surgeries by the time it's a year old. But you will have surgery to open the airways to help it breathe.
BOAS?
BOAS, yes. Yeah. BOAS surgery to do that. But you're also looking at basically special testings of these dogs to make sure that they're fit to fly and move, and being very limited how and where you can take them when.
And also, even if you get a surgery done for dogs, it's probably going to help them to breathe within a normal, cool environment. It's not helping them to be more active outdoors in a hot environment. And a lot of people make the misconception that if it's hot, and especially the heat we have here in Dubai during summertime, that, okay, I'll take my dog out to walk early in the morning and in the evening when it's cooler. But people underestimate the effects of humidity on dogs. Like with heat, at least they can regulate to a certain extent, but with humidity, they can't regulate again.
Exactly. And I mean, dogs cool by two ways. They sweat in their paws and they pant. Now, one thing that people forget as well is you take your dog for a walk at night when the sun's gone. That tarmac, that astrophalt on those roads is hot, much, much hotter than the sort of ambient environment. So you've actually just taken away all ability of that dog to cool, because you're actually heating it up through its paws.
So before we close our topic for today,
I think we need to answer the question of how do you pick a dog? Because people, if people are going to get a dog today, the answer for me for this question is do your homework, see what's your lifestyle, pick the right dog. Don't pick a dog based on the breed that you like. Pick a dog that you're going to be able to take care and you have experience in dealing with.
A breed or type that will suit your lifestyle.
If you're buying a dog, how do you buy a dog? There's window shopping, and there's some people that provide that service, and they're very good at providing that service. I don't want to become the enemy of the people who do that, but there's some people who actually do it very well. And they sort of curate dogs based on genetics and good socialization, and you will find them here. But then there is a lot of available, like, sorry to say it this way, like stock in many places with just filling the vitrina with dogs that are of a certain breed because they are popular. And that happens a lot in small breed dogs or dogs in demand.
As soon as a breed becomes popular, what happens is that you get backstreet breeders, and all they're trying to do is produce 50 of those dogs that people think are cute. And there is no respect, no thought from the people who are breeding those dogs. They are producing a product.
And also, what you start to see also more, which is very dangerous, is, for example, like one of the most popular breeds is poodles, yeah? Mm-hmm. And now you have like pocket-sized poodles, standard-sized poodle, X-large poodles, or whatever sizes we have. But also then they start going into the depth of it. Okay, the red poodle is more prized than the brown-colored poodle, and the price tag becomes different. And what the breeders are doing is they start to breed only the red poodle ones, and then you start to see genetic problems, behavioral issues. The dog looks beautiful, but
the breeding pool that they're using becomes smaller and smaller, which means that all of those genetic conditions just become concentrated. So you end up with a really bad lemon. You don't get a good dog at the end of the day.
And people, I see them all the time. Like, they're really not enjoying their dogs. Their dogs are, have behavioral issues. We get contacted after, the phase of my cute dog has become really an annoying dog, and I'm at a cross path where I'm going to get rid of the dog, or you come and solve my problem, and you have 2 weeks to solve my problem.
It's not going to happen.
And you just spent 2 years creating the problem.
I think your rule of thumb is that, whether it's a medical issue or whether it's a training issue, the length of time that you've taken to break it is going to be the length of time that you take to fix it.
So, again, back to picking. You choose, do your homework. Do not rush. If you're going to get, realistically, if you're getting a good dog and you're speaking to a good breeder and they know what they're doing, first, they're going to vet you more than you're going to vet them. And the second thing is you're going to go on a list and you're going to wait. And you're going to wait months. And the way it works, it's you actually buy a pick. So there's like the first pick, second pick, male, female, whatever it is, yes? And you're going to get on a waiting list, and then you're going to get to choose after a few weeks from when the dogs are born. And then here the law doesn't allow you to bring any dogs that are that are less than 4 months old. So from countries that are considered islands, if countries are considered mainland, then it's after 7-8 months. Islands like France, England.
It depends where they're coming from, but your high risk countries and your low risk countries. So if you like, the countries that you're bringing in, which are considered by the government as being clean of most diseases, then you can bring them in younger from 4 months. If they're considered a country where there is rampant rabies, if there are other things, then that dog is going to be 6 months old before you get it into the country.
And also people, think that if they're going to do that and they're going to speak to these professional breeders, but by the time they find them, yes, they think the price is going to be much more than, more expensive. But it's not. Do your homework, you will find the prices are more or less the same. And even if it's a bit higher, the difference between getting a dog from someone who knows what they're doing and they're setting you up to succeed, right? Because they're doing all the proper socialization work, not, Mickey Mouse socialization, in prior. And they're going to save you a lot of money from veterinary perspective, on vet bills and on training.
But also from that, there is also a scam going on in a lot of countries at the moment, where people are advertising themselves as breeders and even allowing people to go and see the mother and father of these dogs. But what they're actually doing is that they've got a couple of staged dogs and they're bringing in behind the scenes from puppy mills and claiming that these puppies from puppy mills belong to these adult dogs that are not the mother and father, as a way of generating greater income from buying what you consider is, because you consider you're doing the right thing.
If I am buying a dog, what I would do is I wouldn't buy show dogs or show line dogs. I would always buy performance-based dogs.
But that also depends. The difference between them is a show dog is built to be pretty but not very clever. A performance dog is built to be very clever and not necessarily very pretty.
But healthier.
But healthier.
So that's
again,
two different people who are actually now getting a dog.
I want health, but the other thing that I want in there is, with my lifestyle, I don't necessarily want the top performance, because I don't want a dog that is so clever that the rest of my life is dedicated to entertaining this dog.
Look, when
that's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, but also, what's today the most popular breed in terms of shoreline dogs and performance dogs is probably the German Shepherd, right? I look at shoreline German Shepherd dogs that are sort of, this low back, low arch, unnatural, I'm going to upset a lot of people, but it's a deformity, right? And who put the standards for the dog to be looking like this is probably some kennel club, and someone, decided this is the standard. So we went from a dog that stands on 4 legs into a dog that arches on the back legs, and arches is so unnatural, it's unbelievable. And in the same time, these dogs, because of all of this genetic, selective breeding, the chromosome starts to get affected, and you start to get this aggression gene as well in the same time. And it's so that dog is sort of genetically coming from a bad pool,
And
Although
often
it is,
the breeding of them is designed to enhance those characteristics which cause extreme health problems.
you know, with the chow chows, they started breeding them to have these, like, you know, sort of, you know, like pointy-sided eyes.
Yeah.
And
Which
then,
means that they need surgeries from a very young age.
exactly, because it looks cute, no? And then, but they're very aggressive also at the same time.
Well, I mean, what you're talking about there is something called entropion, which is where your eyelids roll in on the top. I mean, we've all had that piece of sand, dust in our eyes that hurts like anything. Imagine if your eyelashes grew into your eyes and gave you that feeling 24 hours of every day. I would, if that was me, I would not have a nice personality.
Yeah,
I would be
like
aggressive.
you clamping on your jaw while you're sleeping all the time, and you wake up and you don't know why you're, you know, stressed or.
Yeah, you'd be aggressive.
So a lot more to discuss, but
Yes.
we only have limited time where we have to close our topic for today. But before we do that, let's ask Elias, pick top 3 breeds for everybody who's watching, listening, and learning
It's very
I don't
difficult.
think
to
you
get
can.
in Dubai.
I don't
Just
think
top
you
3.
can.
I don't think you can.
In Dubai.
I will categorize them in this way. You know, if like Dr. Sara was saying, if you are someone who is active, who's sporty, and you're going to be doing it for the next 20 years, you don't know, you know, but at least you keep a healthy lifestyle and you want an active dog with you. So look at breeds that can do that with you, and look at breeds that can live with you in that country. If you have a family and, you know, you have kids in the family, look at smaller breeds, you know, friendlier breeds that are known to be good around children, and also pick from the right place. If you are someone who is, you know, a professional and you want to get professional dogs that can do sports and they can be trained to do these, you know, like IGP, they call it today, whatever they call these competitions today, then pick dogs that can perform this. This is how I look at dogs. You know, bottom line for me is it's not about the breed only. It is about my ability to take care of the dog and have that lifelong time commitment. It's not a 2 week, 3 months, or, you know, 1 year commitment. I get bored of it and we're getting rid of the dog. And this is how I see things, to be honest.
I think also we're talking about breeds there. But
I do have a question for you too before we
Okay.
close. Yes. So top 3 reasons in, you know, obviously in Dubai, because here we are, that we shouldn't get a dog. I mean, a family who might be wanting to get a dog, but then you may warn them like, no, you're not the ideal one. You need training. So top 3 reasons that you shouldn't.
I think probably your biggest one is lifestyle. You know, have a look at what you're doing. If your intention is to be out the house for 12 to 16 hours every day, you should not have a dog. That goes without saying, really. You know,
Regardless of them sending it to daycare or boarding and trainings. And
what's the point? You know, if you want to get a dog, then you want a dog to be part of the family. But if you're never going to be with that dog, then why spend the money sending it to daycare for somebody else to have the pleasure of your dog? Rather selfishly, if I get a dog, it's because I want a dog.
true. Good point. Second and third, top 3 reasons.
Next reasons not to get would be if you're, I suppose, back to lifestyle again. If your lifestyle involves an awful lot of traveling, I think you've got to make decisions on whether a dog is going to work with that lifestyle. Because if you're putting that dog again in extended periods in daycare facilities not being there, then you have a very much disruption to that dog's life and what you're trying to do with it and your relationship with that dog.
And the last one.
Third one, I said before, it's a financial commitment. If you're going to get a dog, make sure that you have the ability to relocate that dog when you need to. That you've got the money that you can fix that dog's problems and fix them properly. You know, as a vet, we have people coming and phoning up on question of price. It's not about price. It's about fixing them properly, and it's about doing it properly first time. You know, yes, you can find cheaper, but can you find better? So, you know, look at whether you've got the money that you need to train that dog, relocate that dog, fix that dog, maintain that dog.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It was lovely having this conversation today. And in case anyone wants to discuss more, please feel free to leave comments, because Dr. Sara and Elias, we are always available. We are reading your comments. We are reading all the opinions. Even if you want to reach out to them, you've got Dr. Sara at the British Veterinary Hospital, and Elias at EverythingDog or School of Woof.
There are no stupid questions. No stupid. We might have stupid answers, but there's no stupid questions.
I always tell people, please don't feel that you have to be a client to call us to ask for information. If we are the people and part of the people who have many of the answers for you here, feel free to call. There is no restrictions. You can ask for me personally or any one of our trainers in our facility, and we will answer to the best of our knowledge, and we do,
Yes, I'm a witness. I mean, walk in and Elias is always there. He will answer all your questions. He will be there talking to you as long as you feel comfortable, or even we've got so many people walking into the facility.
The idea is to make this work.
Yes,
make it
more
work,
for
or tell you why
it
won't work. We will always be pragmatic, and we will say it how it is without any filters.
Awesome. So till the next topic, we'll be back soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in.